a.m. So good morning, everyone. My name is Bati Kaleli, and we're very happy that you'll be able to join us for today's webinar. We'll be looking at managing cash flow and investments in a season of uncertainty. And we're very happy that we have experts who will help us see how to navigate through this topic, both at an individual and trustee and also a corporate perspective. We have Michael Macau from NCBA who will be starting off the session. We'll be looking at the SME perspective, what solutions, what options are available for SMEs, especially at this period with the uncertainty caused by COVID-19. We have Elizabeth Irungu from ICA Lion Group, who will be looking at how to manage cash flow from an individual perspective. Then we'll be later joined by Mr. Alex Cook from WealthBeat, a company in South Africa, who will be leading us and showing us how to use tools available in the market to just plan your finances, project performance even in the future, and take the necessary steps to ensure that you're liquid at all times. So without further ado, I think I'll do, so these are our partners. So we have WealthBeat, ICA Lion Group, and NCBA, and we're very glad for the partnership they've offered us over the years. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Michael Macau. I see he's already on. Michael holds a Master's of Arts degree in leadership, business entrepreneurship. He has over 25 years of experience in the banking industry. He's an expert in asset finance and leasing. Michael is also a certified workplace coach with passion for youth development, and is also an author with interest in personal development. So Michael, karibu sana. I'll request you to share your screen and lead us through the first session. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Bansi, I'm just trying to get to my screen. In a minute, I'll be there. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Bansi, and great to be in this webinar this morning. Just to share some thoughts around managing cash flow in a season of uncertainty for SMEs, and I'll try and cover 4 areas: the impact of COVID-19 to SMEs, the sectors affected, and some of the opportunities that I see that arise out of the things that we are going through, and a few strategies to minimize the exposure that we could be going through as SMEs. But before I do, let me just introduce the NCBA to us for a minute. We're the bank that says go for it. NCBA Bank Kenya PLC came into being in October 2019 and has harnessed the power of both NIC and CBA to create a bank that brings together the best of both worlds, from cutting-edge mobile banking to good old-fashioned relationship management, from scalable business banking to financial services that grow as your business does, from best-in-class choice
Apologies for that. It looks like Michael's
into the impact of COVID-19 to SMEs. Things are changing too fast right now, and we can hardly plan for a week. So what we do is we just take that, because there is really none. So just that does not mean that these are just peak. As we look at the impact on SMEs by COVID-19, there are 4 areas I just want to talk about. From a big front point of view, so we're seeing some businesses are closing down. Closed right now, will be back at some point in the future, have completely gone out of business. On the second area is from an operations point of view. We're seeing business moving from operating from a fixed location to operating online. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on webinars, they're everywhere trying to do business. Then we have others who have actually relocated their businesses to their houses. They're operating from their houses because location was not suitable from where they were operating before. Then third, there's now the demand for product, which has been, it's something that has been impacted. Like what happened to the Kodak film, it just disappeared. Some products we're seeing, they've totally disappeared. Then secondly, like the cosmetics, we're starting to see a significant drop. Then another category is increase. If we go to the retail sector, we have the kiosk ones in our estates and the digital vendors. We've seen increased demand happening in those spaces. On the wholesalers, we've also seen increased demands because they're the ones supplying with the mini markets and the kiosks with products. The supermarkets, relatively the same, especially when it comes to the consumables. Cloth vendors, significant drop in purchases. Hardware dealers, significant drop. Liquor stores, completely, almost at a standstill. But are there opportunities in this sector? Yes, I see some. If you're running a small shop in the estate or somewhere, or you're a vegetable vendor, maybe it's time to go and pick the orders from the customers as opposed to waiting for them to come to you. If you're a wholesaler, maybe it's time to start delivering directly to your buyers, something you've not done before. Why? Because I see traffic on the road has significantly reduced, so you can be able to do things that you were not able to do before. If you're running a supermarket, maybe it's time to rearrange your shop and get the consumables, the things that people are buying much more closer to the cashiers so that they're able to see them and you can see movement over there. If you're in the cloth and liquor store, I don't think it's doomed completely. You can start calling your customers and see, can I even deliver even if it's just one piece? And let me move to the technology space. We have the internet service providers, increased demand. To do a lot of stuff. In demand for Zoom and the rest, which are now the order of the day. What are the opportunities I see? If you're a reseller in this space, use internet to market yourself, to do targeted marketing so that people who didn't know you existed are able to know, and as they're looking for this service, you're the one who is providing it for them. If you're a software developer, showcase your skills and do demos so that the people who need this kind of softwares, they are coming to you for help. Let's even talk a little bit about the food and supplies sector. The restaurants, hotels, bakeries, significant drop in purchases. The butcheries, the nyamachoma joint, significant drop in purchases. When you come to the bars, completely closed. But is there opportunity? Yes. And maybe for me, I'm saying we need to ask ourselves, do we reinvent our product, especially for this space? Can my product be delivered differently? This is asking ourselves between location versus home. People were coming to me to get my products, but today, can I start delivering that same product that I was offering to them at their homes? Can my products produce different. I was producing en masse and putting it in the counters for people to come and take. Can I start doing custom-made products that people are able to consume? Can even the form of my product change? I was selling fresh products. Now, can I be able to sell frozen products? For example, the restaurant people and the bakeries. You are selling samosas to people that are ready to eat. But now, can you sell to them frozen samosas and even train them how to deep fry them at their home? It will reduce your revenue, but it's better than nothing at the moment. Segment your customer. Who can start? Who can start to consume who still consumes your product? And the data you're holding right now is what will pay, and you need to use it. How far are they from my home? It's about location. If they are far to sign with somebody like food to deliver that food to people, those consumables to people, so that I continue remaining in business and my cash flow does not disappear completely. On the pharmaceutical space, we have the chemists, we have the pharmacies. Significant drop in purchases. Why? Because most of these are located in either malls or places where people are frequent. Footfall has really reduced on those areas. And maybe people have even gotten healthier because moms are at home and they're the ones advising what we eat. What are the opportunities? If you're in this space, I see you needing to keep in touch with your customers. Send them emails, send them SMSs, give them a call and just find out what is it that they're doing. Segment your customer in this place and start asking yourself, is my customer doing this, coming to me for preventive or for cure? And this is where the data you're holding today will pay. And then you use that data to determine how to talk to your customer. Start asking yourself, how far are they from me? Again, location comes into play and partnership comes into play once more. In the education space, schools, colleges, completely closed. E-learning, we see an increase in increased demand. On the webinars, we see increased demand and even supply, because almost every day today you're getting a request or some information about a webinar that is happening somewhere. But what are the opportunities here, especially for those of us who are in the education space? Can I move my product online? I don't think it's much of an option. It's about when will I do this? Can I offer non-traditional products to attract more customers? I think that's really the way to go if your cash flow is going to remain. Can I collaborate with somebody else? I think there's opportunity there. If I teach music and I've been teaching piano and somebody else I know has been teaching guitar, is this the opportunity for us to start cross-selling to each other's database so that I'm able to get more customers from your database and you get more from my database? On the manufacturing space, we have the agriculture and foodstuff being produced one way or another. There's increased demand there. However, in the non-essentials, which we can do without right now, there's a significant drop. But the question is, if you're in the manufacturing space, is there opportunity? I say yes. And the question is, can you diversify your products? COVID-related products have come into play. So for example, somebody who was in the fashion industry, just stitching clothes and has the opportunity to say, can I be able to produce face masks that can give me some mileage? I've seen a lot of companies moving to hand sanitizers, companies that were doing something totally different. So maybe that's a place to go to. You can also ask yourself, can my charity budget help to impact my customers? Because you've got it somewhere you had planned to use it. Your customers are watching and waiting to see, do you really care for us? And maybe this is time to start using that budget to do that. If I go to the real estate space, there is a residential rentals, middle and high-end properties. I see minimal impact because their revenue has not been impacted significantly yet. We don't know how long this will be. However, on the low end side, there's already a significant impact. On the commercial rental locations, we've seen significant impacts because we're starting to see people exiting these properties. On the property developers, significant impact because no one wants to invest at this point really. However, the question is there opportunity? I say yes. For example, if you own a residential rental property. Maybe it's time to cut some costs and agree with the tenants there. Are there things they can do and you reduce their service charge so that it's a win-win game for everyone? You can negotiate with your bank on the loan repayment. If you're a property developer, you can rationalize the project. Ask yourself, which part of the project must be put aside for now so that we can keep our costs down. And we can go on and on. But allow me to just talk a little bit about some mitigants on the strategies that we can take as SMEs. Like I said before, we need to segment our customers. This will help you determine what you can do and with who. Once you know who is your customer, like for example, in the pharmaceutical, I was saying, is it about preventive or is it about curative? And depending on which one it is, you're able to choose which customer do I talk to right now, because there's still opportunity there. This will also help you to do some product matching and say, this customer can consume this product, this one, I don't need to do much right now. Secondly, this is where you really need to use your database. Look at the payments that customers have been paying to you. Look at the emails that have been coming to you and start asking yourself, how can I use this to my advantage by mining this data so that I can keep my cash flows going so that you don't completely shut down. Then partnerships. We need to work with others. We've just realized, like Uber Eats and Glovo and the rest have proved to us, there are things we might not have been able to do in the past, but now we can do. We need to reinvent our products and ask ourselves. This week, my daughter was having a music class online. I'd never imagined it's possible to do that. And then last and not least, this might just become the new norm. So we just need to embrace it and start asking ourselves, how do we do this? So thank you very much. And I'll welcome a few questions if Bansi is okay with that.
Thank you so much, Michael, for that insightful presentation. I see we already have 2 hands raised. So for the rest of the participants, if you wish to ask a question, you may raise your hand, or you may post it on the Q&A platform, and then we'll read it out and have it answered. So I'll allow a few people to speak. I'll start with Kiboro Wandera. Kiboro, I've unmuted your mouthpiece, your mic. You may please ask your question.
I can see it's still muted.
Kiboro, can you hear us?
Bansi, it's still muted.
Mm-hmm. Kiboro, are you able to unmute yourself? Or Evans? Evans, I see you unmuted. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Macau, for your presentation.
Thank you.
And, you mentioned about taxis, and
yes.
You say that, of course, we know that taxis have lost a lot of customers, just like the Matatu industry. And you mentioned that for taxis, maybe the taxi operators could now shift and move to corporates. Would you kindly just, elaborate a bit? Because to me, I still find it difficult, even if they target corporates, what will they carry? Kindly just elaborate on that for me to understand how things would change if they targeted corporates rather than individuals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Evans. You realize that, like everyone is saying, this is an unprecedented period. I have seen, for example, for the essential services, and like Bansi has said, I'm in the banking industry. We've had to be very intentional to make sure that the staff who essentially needs to be in the office get to the office. But because we know public transport has become more complicated and trickier, we've also moved a little bit more to allow our staff to use the taxis right now to get to the office and back home. Now, I have seen signups going in there in terms of people who are doing taxi business, moving into the corporate space to take advantage of that. And secondly, there are even those private taxi operators that were already starting to struggle with the online taxi business coming into space. We're starting to see them getting a little bit more life than they had a month or 2 ago. So to me, it's really an opportunity. It might not be as big as it was before in the past, but it's still there. It's still there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. Let me read out a question. From Victoria James, what's your take on the hospitality industry, which has been obviously hit hard? Let me ask you two questions. And then we have Watson Muvali, who says, I manage a microfinance company in Nairobi. What opportunities are there in the financial sector? If you may answer those two questions, then we'll proceed with the raised hands.
Okay, thanks. Interesting. On the hospitality industry, I think this is one of the industries that has taken the largest hit in this space during this COVID-19. I'm not so sure I have much to say in terms of opportunities that are sitting there when it comes to the hospitality industries. For me, that's one of the industries that has taken the largest hit, and there's not really much I would be able to comment, to be honest, right now. On the microfinance, for me, it's really about, the microfinance is very close to what the banks are. We're in the same space. And I'm convinced that what we should be doing right now is keeping close to our customers, making sure we understand who our customer is, what they do, and making sure we show them that we care. Because unfortunately, the financial institutions that will survive into the future are the ones that will treat their customers well. The ones who will make their customers feel that they care, that somebody cared about me at my down point. Remember, we've always been accused of taking away the umbrella when it starts raining. And I think as financial institutions, this is the time when the umbrella must stay on our customers' heads. We must make sure that we keep them going. The regulator has been very proactive in this space, the central bank, and they've really steered the ship in this direction to make sure the financial institutions remain on board. But now as individual institutions, we have to then make sure we make our customers believe in us and know that they care. I was speaking to one banker the other day, and they were telling us, a banker in Asia, and they were saying they have contacted every single customer in their database, and they have very many of them. So all the relationship managers have been asked to talk to their customers. We're doing the same on our side in the bank. I believe as any financial in the space, that's one of the things that you must do.
Thanks so much for that, Michael. And I think the sentiments on, not taking away the umbrella when it's raining, it's very important. That I see Leonard Nyaoke, who's a landlord, he said that they've done everything in their powers to try and retain the tenants. They have reduced the rent, and they were asking if the banks and lenders can do the same. And I think it's what you're saying, that this is the time now, instead of just renegotiating the repayment period, it's a time that maybe you should have conversations on how else can you support your customers. I'll allow two more questions, then we'll move on to the next presentation. I'll allow Felista Makini to speak. Felista, please unmute your speaker.
Thank you for that very good presentation, Mr. Macau. I really enjoyed it, but I'm just wondering, without even being very specific, although you've also mentioned the pharmaceuticals, many of them don't keep the data of their customers to know their names, their locations, how to get them. So, and you kept on saying some of the opportunities is to reach out on their customers. And I'm really interested to know how can they really get to know who are the customers to reach out to them? Thank you.
Thank you, Felista, for that question. It's very interesting. The other day, I got an SMS from a particular outlet where I go to buy fish. How did they get my contact? They actually sent me a message, I think it must have been last week, and tell me, Michael, we're still open and we can deliver fish to you. And I wondered, how did they get my data? And I realized I most of the time pay using M-Pesa. It is the source of the data you're holding as an SME. You will be surprised how much data you're holding. Just for example, if you get any payment that comes through M-Pesa, that's data that you're holding on. That customer bought from you sometimes some point. If a customer sends you an inquiry on SMS, or they give you a call, or they send you an email, that is data that you're holding. If you can't remember who they are, send them an SMS and engage them. talk to them. Because remember here, it's about relationship. It's about how much can I be able to relate to somebody to want them to talk to me at this particular point in time. So I believe, and maybe this is a lesson for SMEs, we need to start holding data. If you're not holding data as an SME, you're losing opportunity, because this is the time that data is going to pay.
Yes. Thanks for that, Michael. And then the last question, I'll allow Peter Njau to speak. Peter, please, if you may unmute your speaker. Peter, are you able to unmute yourself?
He hasn't unmuted yet.
Yes. Okay. In the meantime, let Charlene speak. Charlene, please unmute your speaker and ask your question. Charlene, can you hear us? Okay. Since I can't get them, John Sitawa, Mr. Sitawa, if you may unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Michael, for that very insightful presentation. I'm thinking in terms of a pensioner, somebody who's just retired and they've gotten a very trivial pension, so they come to the bank and got some money just before COVID and started a business. And as you say, there are those businesses that will completely go out. What mitigating strategies would the NCBA and other financial institutions have to bail out such a person?
Thanks, John. I think let's take the question by Sherilyn. Sherilyn, are you on? Then we can answer both of them as we close.
Thank you, Bansi. You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you so much for the presentation, Dr. Michael Makau. I just have a question in regards to security. In terms of you being a director of business banking, as much as the relationship managers get in touch with the clients, how do you go about securing the information and data? What steps and measures have you taken to manage fraud and, of course, protecting your customers, since most of the platforms being used are online? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Charlene. John, I lost you a little bit there when you were talking about the pension bit. Bansi, I'm not sure whether, did you get the last bit what John was asking on the pension piece?
Basically, he was asking that pensioners probably got trivial pension, and now we have this pandemic. So what options are available for them? What are banks like yourselves doing to just cushion them?
Okay, that's a hard one. I think from a banker's point of view, I might not be the best person to respond to that. And I hope maybe between Alex and Elizabeth, maybe somebody might be able to address that better than I would. So allow me not to answer that, John. Charlene, on your question about fraud, I think, like everyone keeps saying, at the end of the day, security is you and I. We have to make sure that if we notice something that could be going wrong, we bring it up to the correct level so that the issue can be addressed. However, internally, as leaders in the bank, what we're doing is that we are monitoring every single request that is coming through. Every customer who has been talked to by our relationship manager, we know who is talking to who and what the conversation has been, because every relationship manager is logging in and saying, these are the particular customers I have talked to in my portfolio, this is what we've discussed and this is what we've agreed, and therefore we know the course of action on every single one. However, in the event you're a culprit or somebody else has gotten caught in a situation that is not a pleasant situation, I would request that you get immediately in touch with one of us at the bank, and Bansi would be happy to share my contact email address, and I would be very, very happy to come to terms with the fact of what has happened, and we find a solution to it. Because for sure, this is not the time that as bankers, anyone should be doing anything that is against the law.
Mm. Thank you so much, Michael. I see so many more questions. Maybe at the end, if we have time, we'll get to catch up with you. And just to add on what you said on data protection, and that SMEs really need to be keen on collecting data. It's also to protect the integrity of that data. I think carrying on from the question by Charlene, recently we had the Data Protection Act passed, and there are great repercussions for, severe repercussions for the people who don't protect data or don't use it for the intended purpose. So as much as you're collecting data, it's to just check where it's stored and how it's used even by your staff, so that you don't get yourself in trouble. So thanks a lot, Michael. I think we'll now move over to the next presentation by Ms. Elizabeth Irungu. And just by way of introduction, Elizabeth is a General Manager, Business Development and Client Relationships at ICA Lion Asset Managers Limited. She has over 14 years experience in investment management and is a CFA charter holder and a member of the CFA. She holds a master's degree in economics and a bachelor degree in economics, both from the University of Nairobi. Welcome, Elizabeth. I'll request you to share your screen and start your presentation. Karibu.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to make this presentation. And I'm very glad to be part of this team. I hope you can see my screen. Perfect. So today, I know we are talking about managing cash flow and investments in a season of uncertainty from the angle of an individual. I'll try my best to give you clues that can help us to navigate through this very, very uncertain period that we are facing currently. So just to start us off, I'll just give you a highlight of who ICA Lion Asset Management is. And ICA Lion Asset Management, we are part of a big financial services group, the First Chartered Securities. Most likely you've heard about it. And just below there, it is the ICA Lion Insurance Holdings Company, which has two insurance companies, a general insurance, a life insurance, and a trust company in the asset management business. We are 35 years old this year, so we are not a young business as an asset manager or fund manager, and we are licensed by RBA and CMA to provide financial fund management to all clients, individuals, corporates, and anybody who's got money to invest. So COVID-19 pandemic this should be really easy. Now we know it's global. It doesn't affect Kenya alone. It's unlike any other, and it is unprecedented. So nobody has really a good grasp of what's going to happen tomorrow. There's a lot of uncertainty that has come, and the uncertainties that we have seen is that it's around containment of the pandemic, when economies are going to reopen, the impact on the different economic sectors. And I liked what Macau did, a very good analysis of how our SMEs have been impacted and what they can do. How long the lockdown will last is also another uncertain area. And then, of course, the future. What happens after all this is said and done? COVID is gone. What happens to us? Do we continue with webinars? Do we meet face to face? Do we hug our friends and things like that? So there's quite a lot that is going on. But I can tell you one thing for sure: uncertainty has always been with us. The only thing this time round is the fact that the uncertainty is all around health issue. It is big, it is too big, it is global. And so I think for each one of us, we have lived in an uncertain world, but this time round, it looks like it is a bigger thing. And what I want to assure you is that it's going to come to an end too. So what are some of the impact that this pandemic has had on our economies? One is that globally, economically, all economies are expected or are projected to slow down significantly. According to IMF, global GDP will decline by up to -3%. Obviously, I know you have heard that the US, we are anticipating that next quarter, they're going to record GDP growth rate of -25%. In my whole lifetime, I've never had US record such kind of a negative growth, even during the global financial crisis. So this is big, and this has really big impact. Then the other thing that COVID has done is that it has disrupted supply chains because the airspaces are closed, the ports are closed. So a lot of the supply chains have been closed. Even locally, the supply chains have been affected significantly because of, for example, the lockdowns and all that. So you find that goods are not getting to destinations in as fast as they used to. So there is a bit of bottlenecks that have been created by the pandemic and the measures that have been taken by different governments. Obviously, the other thing that has happened is that our healthcare sector and most healthcare sectors have been overstretched beyond capacity, both in a human capacity, both in terms of accommodating the number of patients that they can handle. And we are seeing more and more being done. For example, tents are being put out so that they can handle patients and things like that. So that's another thing. So the investments that governments would have done in other sectors, they're being now reallocated to the health sector, which is in a dire need. And that is going to affect other areas that are going to be cut off from these very needed resources. There's also reallocation of resources from development to operational activities. So governments and individuals now, we are reallocating our resources from development to operational activities because we need to sustain the current situation. We need to use the funds to address the current pandemic. And so development budgets have also come under constraint. Then, as Michael said, most SMEs are expected to shoulder most of the pain. A lot of governments have given ways to overcome these and measures that will help businesses to overcome. But we're finding, for example, in our country, SMEs have not got a lot from our government, and largely because already our economy was not at a robust level, and therefore SMEs haven't got those breakthroughs that they would have loved. For example, I would have loved to hear, for example, things like hotels are, employees are getting maybe some form of stipend so that they can sustain themselves during this time. Maybe our airlines being given some form of grants by the government. Haven't had anything like that, and you can imagine when you stretch it down to the lower levels of the micros, wasn't much from the government. To our households, to ourselves now as individuals, where has it hit most? The first hit was the loss of income for those their sole livelihood, the jobs that they had, many who have lost. We've seen in thousands of people, and we know that those are livelihoods that are supporting in excess of 5 other people. So loss of income is a big impact. Even those of us who are still in jobs, there's a lot of uncertainty around if this prolongs and crosses over maybe to Q3, Q4, will businesses be able to continue shoulder the cost of employees? So that is one impact. The second impact that we see is an increased cost of running the household. Now you've got your children at home, you've got to take care of their food, you've got to entertain them, you've got to also make sure that they remain relevant even this time. So, and homeschooling, for example, is not cheap. When you hear that somebody is doing music online, that means you have network connectivity. Not many households can afford that, so it is a privilege. Some homes they do not have that ability. I know government is saying they are doing something, but obviously we know that this is limited. When you look at the population of the majority of the people who are actually below the poverty line. Then in terms of in a positive way, there is more quantity time that we are spending with our families. That is a good outcome of the COVID, maybe needs to be celebrated. Obviously, it has the other side. I don't want to go into it. And then there's disruption of daily routines. We no longer do things the way we used to do them. Those are some of the impacts. Obviously, we can look at many more, but I see those as some of the major impacts that we are having to deal with in this time and era. Now, allow me to go to tips that one can apply to survive this season financially. And the number one is that you need to assess your financial situation in order to make informed decisions. Don't make decisions without proper data or proper information about yourself. Many times we think we know ourselves, but we have our own blind spots. The best thing is to look at and assess our situation. This means you develop your own personal balance sheet. And here I was trying to demonstrate to you how a balance sheet would look like. So you have your current assets, that's your cash, your money market fund, your savings deposits, your treasury bills. These are readily available assets that you can liquidate to keep you afloat during this period. And those ones would go to the credit side of your balance sheet. And of course, you have your long-term asset. There are those who have plots, that's land, home, bonds, biological assets like animals or even tea bushes, coffee bushes, pyrethrum and all that. Those are long-term assets. Those are also assets that will go to the credit side of your balance sheet. And then you come to where most people never like to look at, our liabilities. What are your current liabilities? Do you have a mobile loan? Fuliza. I know there are people with Fuliza, and every time they see the phone chime, they're like, oh my God, I don't want to know that I need to pay these. Or those are the mobile loans that you have taken from our very good friends who are fintechs, who have been very good at pushing loans to us, and Chama loans and things like that. And those are current because they can be demanded in a very short notice. They go to reduce your cash flows. Then your long-term liabilities are things like mortgage, business loans, and etc. So when you have that, then try and see, do your debits, your total debits, are they more than your credits? And I'll tell you, if your current assets are greater than your current liabilities, you're in a safe spot, and that is very good of you. And as a general rule, you should always maintain a positive short-term funding level, whether there's COVID or not. It is very important that as a healthy and as a prudent investor, you maintain a positive cash flow level. But overall, if your total assets are greater than total liabilities, that is even better. But obviously, we are not saying that you cannot take liabilities, but take liabilities that you can be able to service comfortably without jeopardizing your future. Then the tip number 2 that I'll give is that do not add on more debt. Avoid a situation of getting debt trapped. If in this season you can cut back on your expenses so that you service your debt levels, do that first. So many people have come asking, do I first of all, do I forgo paying the Fuliza loan I have and take advantage of the fact that I'm not going to be taken to CRB so that we can eat and sustain our families, or do I pay it? And I keep telling them, please make sure that you remain a borrower who is in good standing with whoever you borrow from. So the best thing is to cut on your costs first. If there are things that you can live without, maybe less data bundles, less entertainment, so that you're not at the highest level of, say, DSTV, do that. First, cut costs before you can fall out of repayment of your debt. That's tip number 2. And tip number 3, cut back on your expenses. And we can't really overexpress this. Non-essentials. I remember the first time when COVID was announced, people rushed to the supermarkets and they were buying hand sanitizers, soap, jik, and they really overstocked. And I told my family, I'm not doing it. And my daughter asked, why are you not doing it? And I was very clear that you need to be very sober. Would you rather eat or have sanitizer in the house? And we agreed, oh, actually, sanitizer is good, but we can wash our hands. And therefore, we really didn't need to buy sanitizer at that point. Basically, is to say you can actually live in a very modest way, still achieving the same objectives that government has been putting, but without having excessive expenses, especially now. If it is things like dial-in meals, avoid them if you're seeing that your cash flows cannot sustain you in the next 6 months or so. Avoid them. Enjoy homemade meals. So time for us mothers and daughters and our husbands, let us go back to our kitchens and use that time to make our meals and reduce our expenses by by all means. And then tip number 4, if you're working in a negatively impacted sector, for example, the airlines, horticulture, and maybe the service industry like hotel industry, consider changing or moving from maybe from where you live, so that you cut one of the bulk expenses that most households have, like rent. And then also consider reinventing yourself by acquiring new skills so that you're more versatile and you can maybe move to a new sector. Do not despair. I know it is very easy to fall back and feel pity. Don't throw a pity party for yourself. Try get new skills, acquire new skills, monetize those skills that you may be having, and we will be out of this season in a matter of time. So do not despair, reinvent yourself, and be ready to move to another sector. That's called versatility. And then tip number 5, hold back on any capital expenditure until the economies have given us a recovery direction. Do not have if you have an infrastructure project, maybe you wanted to move into, it's not time to break the ground. Perhaps you need to assess whether this is the right time for you to be going into breaking to starting a new project, because what that means is that you may expend this capital, and then because the economy has gone into a recession mode, you find that the takers of whatever it is that you are trying to start, whether it's a business, becomes difficult. But obviously there are sectors that are good. For example, I'll give an example of fintechs, the guys who are doing more of digital services. I think it's time for them to expand because more people are consuming digital services. So maybe such a person would be able to go in. But if I was planning to open a hotel, I definitely would not be opening it soon, or I would hold back onto that. However, when the economy is rising, that is a good capital expenditure to have. But for now, just hold back, especially if you're going to expend your money in a sector that has been impacted negatively. To my last section of my presentation, what can my insurance do? So many of us, okay, penetration of insurance is low, but we do have insurance. If you have a loan, there is a way around it. When you take a loan or any debt from the bank, you normally take an insurance cover, or your bank takes an insurance cover. It is possible that if you have lost your job, you can utilize your credit and employment insurance cover. And but this depends solely on how your bank took out that insurance. And what a credit and employment insurance cover does is that it pays for you the loan premiums or loan repayments for a period between 3 months and 9 months. And in that period, they're hoping that you will have recovered financially and you'll have cash flow to go back to servicing your loan. So instead of extending or taking a loan holiday, it is possible for you to utilize your credit and employment insurance cover. And note here, it is credit and employment insurance cover, not your credit insurance, because just a general credit insurance means life cover. It means the insurance cover kicks in the event that you die. But for unemployment is when your employment ceases, then your insurance cover should kick in. That is on the loan side. And it is very important that most of us know about this, because many times we don't seek that route. And I find many customers are not seeking to go to that route, but maybe it's because they do not know. Michael can elaborate on that later on. Then your life insurance policy can provide a policy loan. If you've been servicing a life policy for a period of time, of time, depending on the insurance company that you're dealing with, it is possible to get a policy loan that can give you some lifeline in case you're in dire need of cash. Also, your policy can be restructured, so it is not fixed. Insurance companies are flexible. Be candid with your insurer and see what options your insurer can give you. They can give you a restructuring, they can give you a holiday. I've seen today IRA has announced at least a 3 months premium holiday, and that is a good thing. So seek that premium holiday, but only if and only if you really, really must get that holiday, because insurance is also a very good investment for anybody, for all of us. And I know we haven't taken enough insurance as Kenyans. That marks the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. I will take your questions.
Thank you, Elizabeth. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Peter, I'm not sure whether this is from the previous presentation. Let me try to unmute you. Or if you're able to unmute yourself, Peter Njau, and ask your question. Yes, go ahead.
Bansi?
Yes, Peter.
I would like just to ask, in the context of pension schemes, I wanted to ask Michael Makau, how can pension schemes at this particular point be able to stay in a business without having so much expenses and survive at this era of COVID-19?
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Elizabeth, if you may.
All right. So how can a pension scheme stay in business without a lot of expenses? I know some of the expenses that pension schemes have to pay up are things to do with running the scheme, especially if you're running the scheme as a trust in-house, and that means you have employees in there, unlike the ones who have outsourced. I believe that when you have outsourced most of your services to professionals, you're paying a small amount in terms of the percentage of fees that is paid out. So one way is you can outsource a lot of your services to professionals. I think we charge significantly lower compared to markets all over Africa. So you'll be getting a good deal when you outsource some of those things. Then in terms of trainings, maybe training your members, you can carry out trainings, for example, online, like what we are doing. You can do now trainings online. I know we've been taking them to hotels and things like that. We can cut back on that and still achieve a training, which is very necessary, especially for our members who right now must be feeling anxious about what is happening in the markets. Then finally, the other way that maybe we can avoid big outflows from our pension schemes is by encouraging maybe retirees who are getting out in a market that is highly now depressed and valuations have really come down. We would really urge members who are able to retire without calling back their pension to actually hold back and wait for markets to recover, and then they come for their pension benefits later on when markets are better, because they definitely are going to take out less today, but if they were to delay, the same proceeds would actually be bigger, because we have seen markets significantly decline over the last month.
All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. I think I'll allow 3 questions back to back, then you can answer those and we'll close.
Fair enough.
The first question is from Japheth Musau. He wrote in, he says, what's the cost difference between a general credit insurance cover and the unemployment insurance cover? And then I'll allow Monica Ondongo and David Choka to speak. If you may please unmute yourselves. David Choka and Monica Ondongo, you may go ahead.
Okay, this is David Choka. You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
I want to probably have some advice on some products that insurance companies have come up with. In the money market, with as little as 1,000, someone can invest in the money market with the interest of around 9 to 10%. What's your take on this?
Thank you, David. Monica, please go ahead.
Hello there.
Yes, we can hear you.
This is Monica.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth, thank you for such a nice presentation. Now, my question is on loan insurance. It is good to let us know that there is the insurance that can be the money that can be used, especially if you are taking a loan, to pay your loan during this time, like the holiday time. Now, does this apply to SACCOs, or it is only applied in the bank industry? Because you realize that some of us got some loans from the SACCOs, and clearly, like I am in the fashion industry, no one is buying clothes. We are giving privilege to food as opposed to to fashion, to clothing. Now we clearly we cannot service our loans. So does this insurance can it pay for our SACCO loans? Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Elizabeth?
All right, starting off with Japheth. The difference between a general credit insurance cover and credit and employment cover. Generally in Kenya, what happens is that when you take a loan, and I'll speak from the mainstream banks, and Michael can add on to that, they pick a credit cover for you. But the credit covers have riders, and these riders come in the form of a rider to do with retrenchment or unemployment, loss of income, and things like that. So depending on your with the bank that you took out a loan from, you can be able to find out if they took out credit insurance cover that had a rider on retrenchment, on unemployment, if you did not get it at the onset. Otherwise, you review your document. If you do have the unemployment rider, it means that in the event that you lose out on your source of income or your job, then the insurance will kick in. However, if it is just a credit insurance, that one only takes care of your premiums or your loan when you die. So it's very good you engage with your bank to find out exactly what sort of bank assurance you took, or you normally pay for in that line of in your credit line. Then David. David was asking about these products that insurance companies are giving called money market funds. First of all, I would like to clear that a lot of money market funds, they are by fund managers. They are not by insurance companies. We are related to insurance companies, but we are fund managers and we are licensed independently. For example, IC Lion Asset Management has a money market. It's not a life policy. So this is very, very different. Savings product that allows you to put in money in small bits or even large bits and be able to access it whenever you want. But on a daily basis, you earn an investment return. So we invest the money in a pool. So many investors come together. We invest the money in a pool of a fund, and we distribute the income that we earn from that pool of investments to each and every stake or unit holder. We call them unit holder, and you earn a return. And when you want the money, it's as fast as getting it from your bank account, because it takes between 24 hours and 72 hours to liquidate your investment. So that means your money is working for you every minute. Then Monica was asking, she's from the fashion industry, and now she has heard about the loan insurance. What I can tell you, Monica, is that I am not certain that the SACCO loans are covered. It would take your SACCO to explain whether they took bank assurance against your loan, but I am certain that your guarantors are the first point of recall. They will go to your guarantors. That is the difference between a loan from a SACCO and a loan from a bank. So perhaps it's something that we can pick up with your SACCO. I would not be in a comfortable position to tell you for sure that in the SACCO segment they actually provide that, because they rely a lot on guarantors.
Right. Thanks, Elizabeth, for the insights. Michael, do you want to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to add something on the question for Monica. I think the most important thing as a borrower is that you must talk to your lender at whatever cost. The last time you want to be running away is when you're in trouble. When you're in trouble is when you should be closest to your lender, talking to them and engaging them. Don't assume because your lender knows things are not working out right now that they should be talking to you. You should be the one talking to them because you're the one who needs their help at this particular point. So I just thought to add to what Elizabeth has said, I think that's critical.
Okay, thank you, Mike and Elizabeth. Because of time, I see so many questions, but we'll have to move on to the next presentation and hopefully we can answer a few more at the end. Okay, so our third presenter is Mr. Alex Cook. I see he's joined us. Alex is a co-founder of GCI Group and is the CEO of WealthBit. Just to read his bio, Alex co-founded the GCI Group in 2000, dedicated to establishing a company that would become the home of ambitious entrepreneurial individuals driven to impact the financial security of their wider community. Over the course of 19 years, Alex has curated the GCI story and he holds a BCE honors from Wits University. Welcome, Alex. I'll request you to share your screen and start your presentation.
Thank you very much. And to end well, thanks Simon. Thanks for inviting us to this webinar. We find ourselves doing quite a few of these now, and it's actually quite a welcome change. I think the whole world seems to be communicating much more often than they used to communicate before the lockdown, which is almost ironic. It's ironic. We've got a very short time. We've got 15 minutes together. So I've done my best in this presentation to get across a message which I hope will help the most amount of people. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to start off with identifying a problem that we see, and Elizabeth alluded to it in her presentation. I was really enjoying her presentation, and that is during these tough times, during these COVID-19 times, people are struggling financially. Many people have been retrenched. Many people's income has been reduced, and what we see a lot of people resorting to is to withdraw their funds from their retirement savings. We've also seen people take voluntary retrenchment in order to access their pension. And what we see is also perpetuation or an amplification of an existing problem, and that is that the majority of members don't seem to be engaged with their own financial plan. They don't understand where they stand financially and what the impact of their decisions are on their future selves. So whilst we're all looking to flatten the curve, I think we all have to work together to help our members sort of increase the curve of their pension fund assets, because when they get to retirement, they're going to thank their younger selves for doing so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to take the audience through a program that we have put together, and it's called WealthBit, and the idea behind I've just logged out. Let's see if I can log back in again. There we go. The program is called WealthBit, and the idea behind WealthBit was to get members and individuals engaged in their own financial plans. In other words, get them to take ownership of their plan. And I've put an example here, and this person, he's not a real person. His name is Leonard Jones. We called him Len, and it's a South African member. So we can relate this into dollars just now. But I said this South African member, one day, we said currently he's 44 years old, and come the age of 65, we've made the assumption that he needs to be drawing out 25,000 Rand after tax in today's terms. So our principle is that what we would like is for Len to understand his replacement ratio and understand what he's heading towards. So the first thing is to understand that the impact of inflation is going to be significant on this 25,000 Rand. When he retires at age 65, he won't need 25,000 Rand as indicated here. Instead, he will need around 84,000 Rand. Now, because people battle to think in future terms, it becomes very difficult when you start compounding numbers. We've related everything to be in both present value, where you get the buying power, and as well as the future value, which is the nominal value. In order to sustain this 25,000 Rand, we've then done calculations, put algorithms in place to show Len what sort of capital he would need one day at retirement. And we've worked out that he would need around 26 million Rand in order to sustain that 25,000 Rand a month in buying power. In future value terms, in present value terms rather, the buying power he would need would be 7.6 million. So let's walk with Len on this journey and see how his portfolio is currently positioned. So I've added an asset for Len, and the asset I've added is his company pension fund, which is currently valued at 950,000 Rand. And on a per month basis, he's contributing around 12% of his salary, or 3,600 Rand per month. The return that he expects to get on this portfolio is around 10% per year.
Sorry,
So
Alex, let me interject. Are you able to increase your screen a bit? I hear a few people are struggling. Yes, that's way better. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Please feel free to interrupt, Bansi. So if something's not clear, rather let me know than carry on talking. Okay, so based on that one asset, we can see how close Len gets to his desired income. So he wants to get to a desired income of 25,000 Rand in today's terms. Based on this one asset, he's likely to get to an income of about 12,700 Rand in today's terms, which means he has an income shortfall of about 12,200 Rand. To look at that in a graph, it looks like this, where this shaded area will represent what Len is likely to achieve in terms of his capital. So at age 65, he's likely to get to 3.39 million instead of the 7.6 million that he needs. So if he does take out the 25,000 Rand per month, that capital is only likely to last him until age 76. And given where mortality is going in the world, that's likely to not be long enough. So he's short from a capital perspective. His asset allocation is something that is also very important. And here we can see what his asset allocation is, where he has 42% in domestic equity, some in domestic bonds, and then 19% in offshore equity. And this asset allocation is going to become very, very important later on when we start getting Len towards a safe retirement. So what we've encouraged Len to do is to actually log on to this system where this information down here, his asset value, will automatically be captured because it can be linked to his pension fund. So the values are updated automatically. What we find the majority of pension funds making the mistake of is assuming that the member's only asset is the pension fund. And as most of us know, a pension fund alone is a good beginning, but it's only a beginning towards a robust financial plan. And to make a plan really robust, we need to add other investments. So at the top of each plan, is something called a new scenario. So what Len can click on is that button called new scenario. Yeah, we've been logged out. Let's see if we can log back in. All right. Apologies for that. Let's go back to Len. So what you've just gone through now is the login procedure, which is a two-factor authentication login procedure, which uses a one-time PIN as well as an email address. But we're going into scenario planning now, where Len can actually start testing various scenarios and get engaged with his own financial plan to get himself to a safe retirement. And the first scenario that I would like to test is, so you'll see it's exactly the same as what we saw in his main plan. The first scenario that I'd like to test is adding a money market. So Elizabeth spoke about money markets, which is a product that certainly have their place in a robust financial plan. And let's call this money market. Why don't we call it Lion Money Market? Lion Money Market. And we'll put a current value in here of 500,000. And let's assume that that Len is putting in 3,000 Rand a month into this money market. Now, the return in South Africa on money markets up until a couple of months ago was around 6.5%. Our Reserve Bank has recently cut interest rates quite aggressively. So this return has now come down to around 4.5%. Going forward, we expect money market returns to be further cut because central banks around the world are looking to free up as much capital as possible, and this is one of the mechanisms available. So by doing that, we can see that the asset allocation of Len's overall portfolio would have changed quite significantly, where he had 42% in domestic. So I'll make it bigger, Vancy. I know you're about to call me. We had 42% in domestic equity as a portion of his whole portfolio. He only has 27%. We had 10% in domestic cash as an overall portfolio. He now has 41%. And offshore equity, where he had 19%, he now has 12% just by adding that one asset. But by adding that asset, he is investing more. So the amount of income that he can reasonably expect to receive at retirement has gone from 12,000 Rand all the way up to almost 16,000 Rand. And his new scenario looks like this. So instead of him ending on 3.396 million, he's likely to end on 4.4 million at retirement. And instead of running out of money at age 76, he's likely to only run out of money at age 79. So we've managed to add at least 3 years to the length of time that Len's capital will last. From a safe retirement perspective, he's still unlikely to be able to retire. So insofar as the red, green, and amber indicator it's still deeply in the red. And what we need to do is we need to get him across to this green. And what Len will want to do is we want to get him across to this green. But let's save this scenario. And let's call this scenario adding money market. So Len has the ability to test various plans, and this is all about getting our members more involved in their own financial plan. Let's test a new scenario, and this goes down to asset allocation. So in this scenario that I'd like to test now, rather than adding a money market, let's add an offshore investment. as an African country, we've all seen what's happened to the buying power of our currency over the past few weeks. It's been quite horrific, and because our inflation differential is higher than that of our main European and American trading partners, we're likely to continue this depreciation trend over time. So rather than adding a local asset or a money market asset, this time let us add an offshore investment. And let's add the same amount of value, but that we added for the money market, but let's add it in dollars. And let's also make the assumption that we're going to be contributing a small amount towards this, or $170 per month towards this offshore investment. So what we've done here is two large things. The first thing we've done is we've increased the risk profile of the underlying investment, and we've also gone more into equity, and we've also gone more offshore. So I suppose there are three things that we've done. There you go. So what we can see is by investing exactly the same amount that we had invested into a money market, but rather investing offshore, we've managed to push the expected income that Len will receive at retirement up from 12,700 to 23,000. And if we remember, by adding the money market, it was 16,000. So it shows you the importance of asset allocation. We'll get to that now. Let's see how long Len's money will last, or is likely to last. So by simply changing the asset allocation, we've managed to get Len to a capital value of around 6.8 million Rand at age 65 instead of 3.3. And the capital is likely to last him for the rest of his life. The asset allocation has changed significantly. So domestic equity would have reduced from 42% to 26%. But look at the major difference here. Offshore equity has increased from 19% to 37.9%. And that's made the significant difference. And so what we found is, first of all, make sure that our members actually understand what their retirement situation looks like, and that they get involved in their own scenario, in their own financial plan. And second of all, make sure that the asset allocation is being done really, really well. So offshore, we partner with a company called Cinnabar, and Cinnabar take care of all of our offshore allocation requirements. And I'm sure that Lion do a wonderful job in Kenya. Nancy, how much more time do I have?
Actually, we are out of time, Alex. But I really love the tool. I don't know if we have any questions on the tool, or if it's something you're able to share, because I guess people would want to try and see how they can curate their own retirement savings and figure out how long it will last. So are you able to allow some sort of access to the participants?
I think we should have a chat with Simon and see how it can best be done.
Okay.
One of the big things that we find with members is that yes, it's focused on retirement, but life is once, and at the end of life we're dead. And along that journey to our grave, we have to make sure that we live the most or the best life we can live.
Yeah.
And that often involves spending money. And it may be an overseas holiday to a destination you've always wanted to go to, or perhaps sending your son or your daughter to an overseas university. It might be a whole variety of things. So we just touched on the basic requirement of 25,000 a month, but the cash flow events which happen between now and retirement are some of the most crucial. So that's. I'm not going to get into that now. If there is time, we can get into it later. But adding those cash flow events to your plan, make it very, very real, and that's what we hope that the tool has done.
It's true, yeah. And I think what I'll do, because of time, I'll allow Simon to just join in and add, his insights, and then we'll take both questions for yourself and Simon at a go, so that we're able to manage time a bit more effectively. So Simon, if you may please join us.
Thank you, Bansi. Am I able to share some screen?
Yes, please go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, thank you. Just a minute. So, thank you, Bansi. So I want to once again appreciate all those who have joined in this webinar today. Thank you, Alex, for joining in to share very great insights. Elizabeth, we have really benefited from your presentation, and also Mr. Macau. So we are very grateful. We know that in some parts of the world, there is a total lockdown, but information is not locked down. And our time, we have the opportunity also not to lock down our aspirations, our ideas. And so through the infrastructure of ICT, we can continue to share information, hopefully that can be able to pull us out and pull us through of this situation at the moment. Just a quote, obviously that the impact of COVID-19 is quite far and a lot of disruption, but I think within these disruptions is huge, amazing opportunities that we need to rise up, see those opportunities, capitalize on those opportunities to reshape the future. At a personal level, for you to benefit from the emerging opportunities, I can assure you for real, out of COVID-19, there are people who are going to emerge billionaires, and there are people who are going to emerge not so much billionaires. There are people who are going to lose part of their wealth. And we can always choose which side of it that we want to be, depending on how we respond and react to the opportunities arising out of COVID-19. So at a personal level, I do encourage that maybe with a lot more time that you have on hand, might you want to try to do a personal SWOT analysis from social capital dimension, financial capital dimension, your career and personal well-being. And out of which, imagine that you are going to build some level of self-awareness, which then you set goals that are going to redefine your future. You will be able to identify opportunities and threats and some of the weaknesses and also strengths that you have, which you can analyze and set goals that are measurable in response to the opportunities emerging out of COVID-19. And so this is key because your ability to survive and build a future sustainable financial well-being is largely dependent on your ability to make money. Statistics indicate that the wealth of the entire world is just about 10% of the population. And they would also go ahead and say that if you distributed that wealth to the remaining 90%, between 3 to 5 years, that wealth will have migrated back to the 10%. And so I imagine that the opportunity we have in this COVID-19 is wealth redistribution, and you can position yourself in a way that you are part of the recipients of what is actually happening at the moment, depending on what you do, how you invest, and how you develop your plan. But money goes to where ability is. Resources will always flow where capacity is. And that capacity can be either by way of you as a business owner or an employee. If it's an employee, then you have the requisite set of skills and competency that can earn you more income from where you work by way of promotion or bonuses. And so this is a huge opportunity that you can be able to develop a plan within your career development that sees to the point that you can enhance your ability to have increased income. Number two is, even after you have gotten the money, are you able to manage? The biggest rate to your money is yourself. It's not even inflation. And so are you able to effectively manage yourself from a spending perspective and saving perspective, that the money you get, you can keep the money and even grow it? And then finally, do you then have the requisite knowledge to be able to save, risk manage your assets, and also make prudent decisions that are able to build your financial well-being into the future? And so as I come to a close, a few pointers that we can look at in a situation of COVID-19. Perhaps you can use this time now to reform your current financial future now, and create a personal plan that sees beyond the situation of COVID-19, and then play resilient. I think there is huge opportunity to invest, look at your personal investments and look at opportunities like inequities now, and invest into assets that are likely to give you higher returns. And then sanitize your finances from wasteful expenditure. Lock down your expenditure, especially which is wasteful, and work within your income ability, and resolve to flatten the curve of spending as you increase your savings. Thank you, Pansy. That's where I stop.
Thank you so much, Simon. Thank you, Simon and Alex. I'll now request the participants, if you have a question for both of them or any of the other panelists, please raise your hand. I can see a few questions that had been sent on the Q&A platform have already been answered by the panelists, but also please feel free to ask that. I think I'll start with a question directed to Alex. This is by Mr. George Oyuga. He says, thank you for the excellent demo. I take it that the best environment to save for retirement is through a retirement savings. And I saw what you did there with a small adjustment using the offshore component. How will such opportunities sit within an environment where the retirement schemes have a capping on offshore investments around 50%? In this case, does compliance with regulations become an inhibitor? All right, so Alex, in Kenya, we have a guideline where about 50% of our retirement savings can be saved, can be invested in offshore. So do you think it will be an inhibitor, and what opportunities will there be for people in such an environment?
So Bansi, I think you're quite lucky. In South Africa, we're limited to no more than 30% overseas. So 50% is a lot better than 30%. But
no, it's 15, 15, not 50. 15.
15.
Yeah,
yes. That is a heck of an inhibitor. Yes, and it's one of the reasons. Obviously, at 15%, then needs to work very, very hard, and it needs to be in the correct asset allocation. I completely agree with Simon in that. Right now, I think I don't believe there's been a better time to invest for the next 10 years than we've seen in the past, probably at least the past 15 years. And the reason for that is it's twofold. First of all, markets have sold off by a fair amount. Markets have sold off by a huge amount, actually. And second of all, the amount of stimulus which is coming into the world now is on a level that I've never seen. It's just last night, the South African president, Ramaphosa, announced the 500 billion rand in spending that will happen in the economy. I know many people in America personally, and they've each received a check of $1,200 and that's about $300 billion that's being pushed in, and all this money is not going to leave quickly. So the money's coming into the system. It's not going to leave quickly, and what it's going to do is going to serve as an inflationary mechanism. So make sure that the offshore component's working hard. The other 85% that remains, it is an inhibitor. We haven't got the same investment opportunities within our own countries that we have globally. So what we urge everyone to do is have your pension fund as a base, but it is just that, it's a base. Any additional wealth which you're able to save, see if you can save that in an offshore jurisdiction which is dollar denominated, mark-to-market priced, and valued in dollars, where you can take advantage of world markets rather than the small markets that both South Africa and Kenya have available to them.
Okay, thank you, Alex. And there's a question here from Annette Wanjiro. So she asks, what offshore investments are available for the common Mwananchi? Mwananchi is a common citizen. And I'll throw this also to Elizabeth from ICA. If you're not in a pension, what opportunities are there for you? And I'll allow that to be the last question. I see we are running slightly late. I request you to just indulge us for another 5 minutes, and then we'll be done. So either anyone can answer this. So what opportunities are present?
So the first thing that we always look for is go for a multi-managed approach. There are lots of really good fund managers overseas, but there are so many of them. There are about 200,000 fund managers, 200,000 investment opportunities, and to choose the right one is very, very difficult. So we advocate going for a multi-managed approach where you invest with a number of different fund managers through one vehicle, and the one we've chosen for our to recommend is Cinnabar Investment Management. They're based in both Mauritius, Guernsey, and South Africa. But they invest with a number of different fund managers around the world rather than just one. So if one goes bad, it's not going to affect your entire retirement situation.
Great. So diversify also your investment manager, basically.
Correct.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex. And
Bansi, I may also want us to add there that, as Alex did mention, pension is just part of one of the assets on personal wealth agenda. So whereas the pension scheme assets are limited to 15% exposure in offshore, I do not think that the same limits will then apply to other opportunities like mutual funds. So through Elizabeth Irungu, I'm sure if the participants would reach out, and I'm sure Elizabeth, you'll share your contacts, it's possible that one at a personal level can optimize value of their funds, their savings, through diversification of other saving and investment products. Elizabeth, you may want to comment.
Thank you, Simon. That is very true. For personal investments, we do not have limits. We develop the investment policy statement with you in mind. So we will be able to invest for you according to your risk profile, your return objective, your liquidity needs, and work with the likes of Alex Cook so that we are able to deliver to the objective that you're seeking to achieve. On the other hand, we also have regulated funds by the Capital Markets Authority here in Kenya. We've got the money market funds, we've got the equity fund, balance funds, and the like, which you can also be able to invest through us, and that way be able to take advantage of the markets at any time and also enter and exit whenever you want.
Okay, thank you so much, Elizabeth. And just to wrap us up, I want to thank all of you for your participation and your attention. I want to thank our partners, Alex Cook from WealthBeat, Elizabeth Irungu from ICA Lion Group, and Mr. Michael Macau from CBA Bank. As you may know, this webinar has been brought to you by NWealth Financial Services. NWealth is a leading provider of pension administration services in the country, and we are guided by our vision, a dignified retirement life for all. So even through these webinars, we hope that we are supporting you to, as you journey on to getting into a different retirement. Just as an overview, we've been in operations for 9 years. We have over 600 million shillings in assets and administration, over 40 members of staff, and our biggest account runs to the tune of 45 million USD with 4,000 members. In terms of location, we are in about 12 African countries with physical presence in Kenya, Uganda, and Mauritius. And I'd also like to acknowledge the participants who've joined us from overseas. And we currently have over 40,000 lives and our administration. So for the last exercise, you may see a poll on your screen shortly. Please give us feedback on a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate today's session, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest? We'd love to hear from you, to hear your feedback. We will be running free webinars into the foreseeable future. We hope that you'll be able to join us next week, where we'll have another panel, and we'll be discussing matters that affect every Kenyan, especially at this time of COVID-19. If your questions are not answered, we will try to answer those and send them to you. We will also send all the presentations and the recording to you as well via email. And the panelists' contacts are on the presentation, so please feel free to reach out to them if you require any further clarification. So with that, I want to thank you and wish you a great afternoon.